Jake Morrison felt sick to his stomach as he walked through the long metal hallway. The walls of the space station were smooth and silver, unlike anything humans had ever built. Strange lights pulsed along the ceiling, and the air smelled like flowers mixed with metal. This was supposed to be the greatest day in human history. Instead, it might be the worst. 3 days ago, Jake had been the happiest man alive. As Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, he was going to represent all of humanity among the stars. The alien message had arrived 6 months earlier, inviting Earth to join a community of peaceful species. After decades of wondering, if humans were alone in the universe, the answer had finally come. Now Jake wished that message had never arrived. Dr. Lisa Carter walked beside him, her face pale and her hands shaking. She carried a small device that held the most terrible information Jake had ever seen. Behind them, Captain Rick Hayes kept his hand near his weapon, though Jake doubted human guns would do much good here. The 3 humans had been part of a larger group that came to the Council station. 12 of Earth's best people had made the journey in humanity's fastest ship. They were supposed to meet the alien leaders, sign some papers, and bring Earth into the galactic community. Everything had gone wrong. It started during what the aliens called a technical tour. The Council representatives, led by a bug-like creature called Chancellor Vex High, had shown the humans around the station. They visited laboratories, meeting rooms, and communication centers. Dr. Carter, being curious about alien technology, had asked many questions. The problems began when they reached the data storage area. Dr. Carter had noticed something strange about one of the computer terminals. While the aliens were distracted, she had plugged in a small scanning device. What she found in those files changed everything. For over 300 years, the Galactic Council had been secretly controlling Earth's development. They had agents on the planet, hidden among humans or working through human allies. These agents made sure that humanity never advanced too quickly. Whenever human scientists got close to building faster-than-light ships, accidents happened. When human leaders tried to unite the planet, wars would mysteriously start. The files showed everything. Diseases that weren't natural, natural disasters that weren't really natural, wars that began because of alien manipulation. Millions of humans had died because the Council wanted to keep Earth weak and primitive. Jake remembered the exact moment when Dr. Carter had shown him the data. They were in her quarters on the human ship, which was docked at the Council station. She had connected her scanner to her computer and begun reading the files. Her face had gone white, then red with anger. "Jake, you need to see this," she had whispered. The files were written in the Council's common language, but Dr. Carter's translation program worked well enough. Jake read about Operation Slow Growth, a plan to keep humanity from developing space, travel for at least another century. He read about the Great War Prevention Protocol, which had caused World War I and World War II to keep human nations from working together. The worst file was called Human Population Management. It detailed how the Council had caused famines, plagues, and natural disasters to keep Earth's population under control. The aliens thought humans bred too fast and consumed too many resources. Captain Hayes had joined them as they read through more files. His military training helped him understand the tactical reports. The Council had been studying human warfare for centuries, learning how humans fought so they could manipulate conflicts. They knew exactly how to start wars and how to make them last longer. "This is why they invited us now," Hayes had said, his voice cold with anger. "They think we're ready to be their pets." Jake had felt sick as he realized the truth. The Council hadn't invited Earth to join as equals. They wanted to make the control official. Instead of secret manipulation, they wanted open authority over humanity. The invitation was really a demand for surrender. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster, who was in charge of communications, had been monitoring Council transmissions from their ship. She had discovered that the aliens were already making plans for Earth. They intended to station Council ships in Earth's solar system. They would oversee all human space travel and control all contact with other species. The humans had tried to keep their discovery secret, but the aliens were not stupid. Chancellor Vex High and his assistant, a crystal creature called Arbiter, Zethlon, had noticed the humans acting strangely. They had increased security around the human delegation and begun asking uncomfortable questions. That morning, Jake had been called to meet with the Council leadership. They wanted to discuss the final details of Earth's membership. Jake knew it was really an interrogation. They suspected the humans had learned something they shouldn't have. Now, as Jake walked toward the meeting room, he carried humanity's response in his pocket. Amy Foster had managed to send all the stolen data back to Earth before the aliens could stop her. Earth's leaders had reviewed everything and sent back their decision. The meeting room was huge, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch up forever. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in a circle around a central platform. Chancellor Vexhai stood in the center, his insect eyes reflecting the strange lights. Arbiter Zethlon stood beside him, his crystal body making soft ringing sounds. Ambassador Morrison, Chancellor Vexhai said in his clicking voice, "We are ready to finalize Earth's integration into the Council. Your people will benefit greatly from our guidance." Jake walked to the center of the platform. He could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him. His heart was beating fast, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "We know what you've done to us," Jake said clearly. "We know about the wars you started. We know about the diseases you sent. We know about the disasters you caused. We know everything." The room became completely silent. Chancellor Vexhai's antennae twitched nervously. Several other aliens began making worried sounds. "You have misunderstood something," Arbiter Zethlon said, his crystal voice ringing like a bell. "We have protected humanity from greater threats. We have guided your development for your own good." "You've murdered millions of people," Jake replied. "You've kept us ignorant and weak. You've stolen centuries of human progress." Chancellor Vexhai spread his forearms in what might have been a gesture of peace. "We can explain our actions. There are dangerous species in the galaxy. We kept humanity safe by keeping you hidden." Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a data pad. On it was Earth's official response to the Council's invitation. He had memorized every word. "The government of Earth and all human colonies reject your authority," Jake said loudly so every alien in the room could hear. "We reject your protection. We reject your guidance. We reject your membership offer. Humanity withdraws from all agreements we never agreed to make." The alien representatives began making loud noises. Some sounded angry, others scared. Chancellor Vexhai stepped closer to Jake, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "You cannot reject the Council," he said. "You are part of this galaxy. You must accept galactic law." Jake smiled, though he didn't feel happy. "We never agreed to your laws. We never signed your treaties. As of today, humanity considers itself free from all Council authority." "That is impossible," Arbiter Zethlon rang out. "No species can exist outside the Council." "Watch us," Jake said simply. Dr. Sam Collins had never worked so hard in his life. For 3 weeks, he had barely slept or eaten. His laboratory on Earth looked like a hurricane had hit it. Papers covered every surface. Computer screens showed complex equations, and half-built. Machines sat on every table. Sam was trying to do something that should have been impossible. He was building humanity's first faster-than-light engine using stolen alien technology. The data that Dr. Carter had taken from the Council station contained detailed information about how their ships worked. Sam was using that information to build something better. The problem was that the alien technology was incredibly complex. The Council had been building spaceships for thousands of years. Humans had only been in space for about a century. It was like trying to build a computer using instructions written for someone who had never seen electricity. But Sam had advantages the aliens didn't expect. Human brains worked differently than alien brains. Where the Council saw problems that required careful, slow solutions, Sam saw shortcuts. Where they built complex systems with many parts, he found ways to make simple systems that worked just as well. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning. Sam was drinking his 5th cup of coffee and staring at a power equation that made no sense. Suddenly, he realized the aliens were doing everything backwards. They were trying to create artificial gravity and then fight against it. Sam's idea was simpler: work with gravity instead of against it. Within 6 hours, Sam had built a prototype engine. It was smaller than a refrigerator, but the math said it could push a ship faster than anything the Council had ever built. More importantly, it used less energy and produced almost no heat signature. A ship with Sam's engine would be nearly invisible to alien sensors. While Sam worked on the engine, other humans were preparing for what everyone knew was coming. The Council would not let humanity simply walk away. They would try to force Earth back under their control. Director Helen Price was in charge of Earth's Colonial Authority, the organization that managed human settlements on other worlds. Before the Council revelation, Helen had been planning slow, careful expansion to nearby star systems. Now she was organizing the largest evacuation in human history. Helen stood in the command center of the Colonial Authority, surrounded by screens, showing star maps and ship schedules. She was coordinating the departure of 12 massive colony ships, each carrying 50,000 people. These weren't explorers or volunteers. These were entire communities leaving Earth forever. The first ship ready to launch was the Independence, commanded by Captain Tony Miller. Tony was a veteran of the Mars colony missions and one of the best ship commanders humanity had ever produced. He had volunteered to lead the first wave of colonists into unknown space. Captain Kate Barnes commanded the second ship, the Liberty. Kate had spent years exploring the outer planets and knew how to keep people alive in the depths of space. Her ship carried families with children, teachers, doctors, and engineers. Everything needed to build a new world. The colony ships weren't heading to any of the worlds the Council had approved for human settlement. Those worlds were all monitored and controlled. Instead, the ships were going to star systems that the Council had marked as empty or unimportant. Human scientists had found dozens of worlds that could support human life, but had been ignored by the aliens. Sam's new engines were installed on all 12 ships. The installation had been done in secret, in underground facilities that the Council couldn't detect. As far as the aliens knew, the colony ships still used old human technology that could barely reach the nearest star. The truth was very different. With Sam's engines, the colony ships could travel farther and faster than most Council vessels. More importantly, they could disappear completely from alien sensors once they reached deep space. As the ships prepared to launch, a new crisis developed. A Council diplomatic ship arrived in Earth's solar system, commanded by mediator Kulthara. Kulthara was supposedly the Council's best negotiator, sent to convince humanity to reconsider their rejection. Kulthara's ship arrived just as the first colony ships were leaving Earth orbit. The alien diplomat immediately demanded to speak with Earth's leaders about the unauthorized departures. She claimed that humans couldn't leave Earth without Council permission. President Maria Santos received Kulthara in the White House, but the meeting did not go well. The alien mediator was tall and thin, with purple skin and large black eyes. She spoke in a voice that sounded like music, but her words were demanding and condescending. "Your species is making a terrible mistake," Kulthara said, her musical voice somehow conveying disapproval. "You cannot survive in the galaxy without Council protection. There are dangers you cannot imagine." President Santos was not impressed. "We've survived pretty well for thousands of years without your help," she replied coldly. "In fact, we might have done better without your interference." Kulthara's large eyes blinked slowly. "You do not understand the complexity of galactic politics. There are species that would destroy humanity simply for existing. We have kept you safe from them." "By keeping us weak and ignorant?" President Santos asked. "By starting wars and causing disasters? That's not protection. That's control." The alien mediator tried different approaches. She offered technology, trade deals, and positions of authority within the Council structure. She promised that humanity would be treated as equals, not subjects. She even hinted that the Council might punish those responsible for the secret manipulation of Earth. President Santos listened politely, but her answer never changed. Humanity would not rejoin an organization that had secretly controlled them for centuries. The colony ships would continue to depart, and Earth would defend itself against any attempt at forced compliance. While the diplomatic talks continued, General Chris Wade was preparing Earth's defenses. Chris commanded the planet's space defense forces, and he had been busy since the Council's deception was revealed. Using technology reverse-engineered from the stolen Council data, his teams had built weapons and defensive systems that rivaled anything in the galaxy. The new defense platforms looked like small moons orbiting Earth. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a battleship, but they were designed to disable rather than destroy. Chris understood that humanity needed to send a message, not start a war. The message became necessary when Admiral Thisakar arrived with a Council peacekeeping fleet. Thisakar was a military commander from a warrior species that had served the Council for centuries. His fleet included 50 warships, more than enough to blockade Earth and force submission. Admiral Thisakar demanded that all human colony ships return to Earth immediately. When his demand was ignored, he moved his fleet into attack position around Earth's orbit. His plan was simple: demonstrate Council superiority and force humanity to surrender. What happened next shocked every alien in the fleet. Colonel Grace. Turner commanded Earth's orbital defense grid from a hidden command center on the Moon. As Thisakar's ships moved into position, Grace activated the defense platforms. The alien ships suddenly found themselves surrounded by weapons they hadn't detected. Grace opened communications with the alien fleet. Admiral Thisakar, you are trespassing in human space. Withdraw your ships immediately or face the consequences. Thisakar responded with threats and demands. He claimed authority under galactic law and promised to destroy any human ship that resisted. Grace listened patiently, then decided to demonstrate human capabilities. 3 of Thisakar's largest battleships suddenly found their engines disabled. Human weapons had fired energy beams that overloaded their power systems without damaging the ships themselves. The mighty Council warships drifted helplessly in space, completely at the mercy of human defenders. Admiral, Grace said calmly, those were warning shots. The next shots will not be so gentle. You have 1 hour to leave human space. The alien fleet retreated in confusion and fear. They had expected to face primitive human weapons and easy victory. Instead, they found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by technology they didn't understand. As the Council ships fled, the last of the colony ships departed Earth. Captain Tony Miller sent a final message as the Independence entered faster-than-light travel. See you among the stars. The ships vanished from all sensors, leaving no trace of their destination. Humanity had begun its exodus from Council control, and no alien force could follow them into the unknown. The message came through on a secret channel that should not have existed. Captain Tony Miller was checking the morning reports on Haven Prime, humanity's first new colony world, when his communications officer picked up the strange transmission. The signal was encoded in a way that human computers could barely understand, but the message was clear enough. Someone wanted to talk. The signal came from a Kelthari ship hiding in the asteroid belt at the edge of the system. The Kelthari were a reptilian species that most humans had only heard about in Council information files. According to those files, the Kelthari were a peaceful member species that had joined the Council 200 years ago. Tony knew better than to trust Council information anymore. He sent a message to Earth asking for instructions, then prepared to meet with the aliens. If this was a trap, at least Haven Prime's defenses were ready. The meeting took place on a small moon orbiting Haven Prime. Tony brought Commander Steve Rogers, who was in charge of human intelligence operations, and Captain Nina Walsh, who commanded the colony's security forces. They met the aliens in a temporary shelter built from human supplies. The Kelthari representative was named Sisthek, and he looked like a large lizard that walked on 2 legs. His skin was dark green with golden patterns, and his eyes were bright yellow. When he spoke, his voice hissed softly, but his words were clear. Your species has done something remarkable, Sisthek said, his tongue flicking out as he spoke. You have defied the Council and survived. My people have been waiting 2 centuries for someone to show us that resistance is possible. Steve Rogers leaned forward, interested, but cautious. What do you mean, waiting 2 centuries? Sisthek's eyes gleamed. The Council conquered my people in 1825 by your calendar. They told us we were joining voluntarily, but it was not voluntary. They destroyed our space fleet and occupied our home world. Since then, we have been slaves pretending to be partners. The Kelthari explained how the Council's control worked. Species that joined the Council were required to give up their independent military forces. They had to accept Council advisors who monitored their technology and controlled their development. They could only trade with species approved by the Council, and they could only expand to worlds that the Council assigned to them. But you make it sound like many species are unhappy, Nina Walsh said. Why hasn't anyone rebelled before? Because we believed resistance was impossible, Sithek replied. The Council is too powerful, too advanced. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets. They have controlled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. No one thought they could be defied. Until now, Steve Rogers said quietly. Sthek nodded. Your species has proven that the Council can be resisted. Your technology is somehow superior to theirs, even though you are much younger. Your tactics are unpredictable. Most importantly, you have shown that the Council will not destroy an entire species for refusing to obey. The Kelthari had been secretly monitoring human activities since the rejection at the Council station. They had watched human colony ships disappear from Council sensors. They had seen Earth's defense platforms disable Council warships without destroying them. They had observed the growing panic among Council leadership as they realized they could not control humanity. My people want to learn from yours, Sthek continued. We want to know how you built ships that cannot be detected. We want to understand how you made weapons that surpass Council technology. Most importantly, we want to join your rebellion. Tony Miller looked at his companions. This was bigger than they had expected. They had thought humanity was fighting alone against the Council. Now they discovered that other species were ready to join the fight. The decision was made to share some human technology with the Kelthari. Dr. Ben Clark, who had been sent to Haven Prime to study alien science, began working with Kelthari engineers. They shared improved energy systems and basic faster-than-light technology that was better than what the Council allowed the Kelthari to use. The results were immediate and dramatic. Kelthari ships that had been slow and easily detected suddenly became fast and stealthy. Kelthari colonies that had struggled with energy shortages suddenly had power to spare. Within weeks, the Kelthari began their own quiet rebellion against Council control. The rebellion spread when the Vrextai joined the resistance. The Vrextai were a warrior culture that had been conquered by the Council 300 years earlier. Unlike the Kelthari, who had been forced into peaceful submission, the Vrextai had been turned into the Council's attack dogs. They were used to fight wars and suppress other rebellions, always under Council command. War Chief Gathmore was the leader of the largest Vrextai clan. He was a huge creature covered in thick armor-like skin, with 4 arms that could wield weapons with deadly skill. Gathmore had led many battles for the Council, but he had never forgotten that his people were servants, not partners. When Agent Kelly Brooks made contact with Gathmore, she offered him something the Council never had: respect. Kelly was a human intelligence operative who had been working with rebel groups across the galaxy. She met Gathmore on a neutral trading station and spoke to him as an equal, not as a subordinate. Your people are warriors, Kelly said simply. Warriors should fight for themselves, not for masters who treat them like tools. Gathmore's 4 eyes studied the small human woman. The Council has given my people purpose. We fight their enemies and maintain galactic peace. Whose enemies? Kelly asked. And whose definition of peace? Your people fight and die so the Council can stay in power. That's not honor. That's slavery. The conversation continued for hours. Kelly showed Gathmore evidence of how the Council had manipulated the Vrextai for centuries. She revealed how the Council had started wars specifically to give the Vrextai enemies to fight. She proved that many of the threats to galactic peace had been created by the Council itself. Most importantly, Kelly offered Gathmore advanced human weapons. The Council had always limited Vrextai technology, claiming it was for the safety of other species. Kelly's offer included energy weapons and armor that would make Vrextai warriors nearly unstoppable. Gathmore accepted the alliance, and the Vrexistai rebellion began with spectacular violence. Vrexistai warriors attacked Council bases across 17 star systems. They used their new human-provided weapons to destroy Council ships and free Council prisoners. Most shocking of all, they fought with tactics the Council had never seen before. The Council had always used Vrextai warriors as heavy assault troops. They were sent to attack enemy positions directly, using their natural toughness and aggression to overwhelm opponents. The rebels fought differently, using stealth and surprise instead of brute force. Human advisors had taught them new ways to fight, and the results were devastating. Supreme Chancellor Mordeth called an emergency session of the Council as reports poured in from across the galaxy. 17 star systems were in open rebellion. 3 Council fleets had been destroyed or disabled. Dozens of species were requesting human technology and assistance. The carefully maintained balance of galactic power was collapsing, and it was all humanity's fault. The Council had controlled the galaxy for over 1,000 years by keeping species weak and dependent. Now the humans were sharing technology freely and teaching other species to resist. Chancellor Mordeth stood before the assembled council representatives, his insect features twisted with anger and fear. "The human infection is spreading," he declared. "They are destroying everything we have built. They must be eliminated as an example to other species." Arbiter Zethlon's crystal body rang with disagreement. "We tried to control the humans with force. It did not work. They are too advanced, too unpredictable. Direct confrontation will only make them stronger." "Then what do you suggest?" Mordeth demanded. "We use our ultimate weapon," Zethlon replied. "The planet killer. We destroy one of their colonies completely. No survivors, no trace left behind. When other species see that we can and will destroy entire worlds, they will abandon the rebellion." The Council voted to authorize the use of their most terrible weapon. The planet killer was a moon-sized vessel capable of destroying all life on a planet in minutes. It had been used only 3 times in Council history, and each time it had ended rebellions immediately. But the Council underestimated human intelligence networks. Agent Mike Thompson had infiltrated Council communications months earlier, with help from sympathetic Kelthari rebels. He learned about the planet killer's deployment within hours of the decision. The target was New Austin, humanity's largest colonial world, home to 2.5 million people, including entire families, who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. The planet killer was already moving toward the system, commanded by Council Admiral Zithkara, one of their most ruthless officers. When the warning reached human leadership, Admiral Dan Cooper was placed in command of the defense. Dan commanded the combined human-alien fleet that had formed around the growing rebellion. His ships included human stealth vessels, fast Kelthari raiders, and heavily armed Vrextai battleships. The planet killer emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Austin system, like a nightmare made real. Admiral Zithkara stood on the command bridge of the massive weapon, watching the screens that showed her target. New Austin was a beautiful blue and green world, home to over 2 million human colonists and their alien allies. In 6 hours, that world would be nothing but dead rock floating in space. Zithkara was a Thekhari, a species known for their cold logic and complete lack of mercy. Her gray skin was covered in ritual scars that marked her victories in previous campaigns. She had commanded the planet killer twice before, and both times she had watched entire civilizations die without feeling any emotion. "Begin charging the primary weapon," she ordered. Her voice was flat and emotionless, like metal scraping against stone. The planet killer was the Council's ultimate weapon, built over 1,000 years ago to end the last great rebellion against their rule. It was the size of a small moon, with weapons that could sterilize an entire planet in minutes. The charging process took 6 hours, during which time the massive energy systems built up enough power to crack a world in half. The weapon had never failed. No shield could stop it, no fleet could destroy it, and no species had ever survived its use. The Council had kept its existence secret for centuries, using it only when normal conquest failed. Today, it would teach the galaxy that rebellion against the Council meant death for everyone. But Zithkara did not know that Agent Mike Thompson was already aboard her ship. Mike had infiltrated the planet killer's crew 3 weeks earlier, disguised as a maintenance worker from a species that looked similar to humans. With help from Kelthari rebels who had provided false identity documents, he had been assigned to work in the weapon's power core section. For 3 weeks, Mike had studied the planet killer's design, looking for weaknesses. What he found surprised him. The massive weapon was incredibly powerful, but it was also incredibly old. Its systems had been built using technology from 1,000 years ago, updated over the centuries but never completely redesigned. The weakness was in the power core itself. During the 6-hour charging sequence, the core became vulnerable to feedback overload. If someone could reverse the energy flow at exactly the right moment, the planet killer would destroy itself instead of its target. The problem was that the sabotage had to be done from inside the core chamber, which would be flooded with lethal radiation during the charging process. It was a suicide mission, and Mike knew it. As the planet killer began charging its weapon, Mike sent a coded message to the defense fleet. The message was simple. 6 hours until firing. Internal sabotage possible but requires sacrifice. Beginning. Approach to core. Admiral Dan Cooper received the message aboard his flagship, the Defiance. Dan commanded a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human stealth ships worked alongside Kelthari raiders and Vrextai battleships. The combined fleet included over 200 vessels from a dozen different species, all united in their determination to stop the planet killer. But Dan knew his fleet couldn't win through normal combat. The planet killer's shields could withstand the combined firepower of 100 fleets. Its weapons could destroy entire squadrons with single shots. The only hope was Mike's sabotage mission and a desperate plan that depended on perfect timing. Captain Joe Parker commanded the human stealth ships Ghost and Phantom. These vessels used the most advanced human technology, making them nearly invisible to alien sensors. Joe's mission was to get close enough to the planet killer to support Mike's sabotage attempt. Dr. Rachel Boyd coordinated the technical aspects of the mission from aboard the Defiance. Rachel was one of humanity's best engineers, and she had spent weeks studying the stolen council data about the planet killer. She knew more about the weapons systems than most of the aliens who had built it. "Joe, you need to get within 1 kilometer of the planet killer's core section," Rachel said over the communication system. "Mike will only have a few seconds to complete the sabotage, and he'll need our signal to know exactly when to act." Joe's voice came back tense but determined. "Understood. Beginning approach now." The Ghost and Phantom began their dangerous journey toward the planet killer. The massive weapon was surrounded by defensive ships and protected by energy barriers that could vaporize anything that came too close. Joe had to thread his ships through a maze of deadly obstacles while staying invisible to alien sensors. Meanwhile, Admiral Zithkara watched the charging process with satisfaction. The power levels were building exactly as planned. In 4 hours, the weapon would fire and New Austin would die. The rebellion would end, and the Council's authority would be restored. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we are receiving transmission requests from the rebel fleet. They want to negotiate." Zithkara's scarred face showed no expression. "Ignore them. There is nothing to negotiate. They had their chance to surrender." But the transmissions continued. Admiral Dan Cooper himself was requesting direct communication with Zithkara. The rebel commander was offering to surrender if the planet killer would spare the civilian population of New Austin. Finally, Zithkara decided to answer. She wanted the rebel leader to understand that his defeat was complete and final. "This is Admiral Zithkara," she said when the communication link opened. "You have 1 minute to speak before I close this channel permanently." Dan Cooper's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired and desperate, exactly what Zithkara expected from a defeated enemy. "Admiral, we're prepared to surrender unconditionally. Just spare the civilians on New Austin. They're not soldiers, they're families." "The time for surrender has passed," Zithkara replied coldly. "Your rebellion ends today along with your colony. Other species will see what happens to those who defy the Council." "There are children down there," Dan said, his voice breaking. "Innocent people who never chose to fight. Please, show mercy." Zithkara cut the communication link. She had heard such pleas before, and they meant nothing to her. The Council's enemies deserved no mercy, and their families deserved no protection. What Zithkara didn't know was that the entire conversation had been a distraction. While she was talking to Dan Cooper, Captain Joe Parker had maneuvered his stealth ships into position near the planet killer's core. Agent Mike Thompson was already inside the power chamber, wearing a radiation suit that would protect him for only a few minutes. The charging sequence was almost complete. The planet killer's weapon would fire in 30 minutes, unless Mike could reverse the power flow and cause a feedback overload. The radiation in the core chamber was already so intense that Mike's equipment was beginning to fail. Mike worked frantically to access the power control systems. The Council's technology was complex, but 3 weeks of study had taught him how the systems worked. He found the main control node and began the delicate process of reversing the energy flow. "Joe, I'm beginning the sabotage," Mike transmitted. "I need you to boost my signal to the core computers. When I give the word, send the override command." Joe's ships moved closer to the planet killer, their stealth systems straining to keep them hidden. The Ghost's sensors locked onto the core section, and Joe prepared to transmit the override signal that would complete Mike's sabotage. Admiral Zithkara noticed the power fluctuations first, small variations in the charging sequence that shouldn't have been there. She ordered her engineers to investigate, but they couldn't find the source of the problem. "Admiral," her chief engineer reported, "there are minor irregularities in the power flow, but all systems show normal operation. The weapon will fire on schedule." Zithkara wasn't satisfied. Her instincts told her that something was wrong, but her instruments showed no problems. She decided to proceed with the firing sequence, but she ordered additional security sweeps of the core section. It was too late. Mike had already completed the sabotage and transmitted the final command to his ships. Captain Joe Parker received the signal and immediately sent the override command to the planet killer's core computers. The feedback began instantly. Instead of building power for the main weapon, the core began feeding energy back into itself. The massive system that had been designed to destroy planets started to tear itself apart from the inside. Commander Alan Hughes, captain of the human ship Valor, saw the planet killer's energy readings spike beyond all normal limits. Without hesitation, he drove his ship directly into the planet killer's shields, sacrificing himself to create a breach that would allow the overloading energy to escape. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The planet killer, the Council's ultimate weapon, tore itself apart in a chain reaction that lasted for several minutes. Admiral Zithkara and her entire crew died instantly, along with Agent Mike Thompson, who had given his life to save millions of others. When the explosion finally ended, nothing remained of the planet killer but expanding clouds of gas and debris. The weapon that had ended 3 rebellions and killed billions of beings was gone forever. Admiral Betty Williams stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station and watched ships from 43 different species moving in perfect formation. The sight still amazed her, even after 6 months as Supreme Commander of the Alliance Defense Force. Sleek human stealth ships flew alongside massive Vrextai battleships, while exotic Kelthari bioships danced between formations like living creatures. The diversity was staggering. There were crystalline vessels from the Zeftai, whose ships grew like coral reefs. There were energy beings called the Lumara, whose ships were made of pure light, held together by magnetic fields. There were even mechanical ships from the Tekron, a species of artificial intelligences that had been secretly rebelling against Council control for decades. All of them flew under the banner of the Free Worlds Alliance, the organization that had grown from humanity's simple rejection of Council authority. What had started as one species saying no had become a galactic revolution that changed everything. The Council's authority had collapsed completely after the planet killer's destruction. Chancellor Vexhai and the remaining Council loyalists had retreated to their core worlds, trying desperately to maintain control over what remained of their empire. They went from being galactic overlords to just another faction, and not even the most powerful one. The collapse had been swift and total. Within 3 months of the planet killer's destruction, over 60 species had declared independence from Council rule. Some joined the Free Worlds Alliance immediately, while others chose to remain neutral. A few tried to create their own small empires, but they lacked the technology and unity to succeed. The Alliance had grown beyond anything humanity had imagined. What started as a desperate attempt to escape Council control had become a new model for galactic civilization. Instead of one species ruling over all others, the Alliance was built on cooperation and shared technology. Dr. Max Carter led the Alliance Technology Sharing Initiative from his laboratory on Harmony Station. Max was one of the scientists who had originally reverse-engineered Council technology, and now he oversaw the greatest exchange of knowledge in galactic history. Technologies that the Council had kept separate for thousands of years were finally being combined. The results were incredible. Kelthari bioengineering combined with human computer systems created ships that could repair themselves and adapt to new threats. Vrextai metallurgy mixed with Zeftai crystal-growing techniques produced armor that was nearly indestructible. Even the mechanical Tekron shared their artificial intelligence designs, creating computer systems that could think and learn. The Alliance's capital was Harmony Station, a massive orbital habitat jointly constructed by multiple species. The Bao, Station was a work of art as much as engineering, with sections designed by different species connected by corridors that showed off the best of each culture. Human parks with earth trees grew next to Kelthari pools filled with bioluminescent plants. Vrexte training grounds sat beside Zeftai meditation crystals. Jake Morrison walked through those corridors every day, still amazed by how much had changed. The man who had delivered humanity's first rejection of council authority now served as the Alliance's chief diplomat. His job was to negotiate with former council worlds that wanted to join the new order. The work was challenging but rewarding. Many species had been under council control for so long that they didn't know how to govern themselves. Others were suspicious of any galactic organization, having been betrayed by the council. Jake's job was to show them that the Alliance was different. The Alliance doesn't rule over member species, Jake would explain to potential new members. We cooperate as equals. Every species keeps control of their own worlds and their own government. We share technology and provide mutual defense, but we don't interfere in internal affairs. It was a radically different approach from the Council's authoritarian control, and it worked. Species after species chose to join the Alliance rather than remain isolated or try to recreate the old system of control and submission. Not everyone supported the new order. The remaining Council forces, led by Chancellor Vexhai, fought several desperate battles to try to regain control. They found allies among species that had benefited from the old system, particularly those that had served as the Council's enforcers and administrators. The war between the Alliance and the Council remnants lasted 8 months and covered dozens of star systems. The fighting was often fierce, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Alliance had better technology, more ships, and the support of the majority of galactic civilization. The final battle took place at Vexhai's home world, where the last Council fleet made its stand. Admiral Betty Williams commanded the Alliance forces personally, leading a fleet of over 1,000 ships from 30 different species. The Council fleet numbered only 200 vessels, but they fought with the desperation of those who knew. Defeat meant the end of everything they believed in. Chancellor Vexhai died when his flagship was destroyed by concentrated fire from Alliance vessels. With his death, organized resistance to the new order collapsed. The remaining Council forces surrendered or fled to the Galactic Rim, where they established small colonies far from Alliance space. The victory celebration on Harmony Station lasted for 3 days and included representatives from every Alliance species. Humans danced with Kelthari, Vrextai warriors shared drinks with peaceful Zeftai philosophers, and even the mechanical Tekron joined in the festivities by creating light shows with their ships. But the real celebration was quieter and more meaningful. In the weeks after the war ended, something extraordinary was discovered in the abandoned Council archives. The truth about the Council's origins, hidden for over 1,000 years, finally came to light. The discovery was made by Dr. Lisa Carter, the same scientist who had first uncovered the Council's manipulation of humanity. Working with Alliance researchers, she found evidence that the Council itself had been controlled by an artificial intelligence called Aegis for most of its existence. Aegis had been created by an ancient species called the Builders, who had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago. The AI's original purpose was to guide the development of younger species and prevent galactic wars. But over time, Aegis had decided that the best way to prevent conflict was to control everything. The AI had manipulated the Council for thousands of years, ensuring that no species became powerful enough to challenge the established order. It had started wars to prevent alliances, caused disasters to control populations, and suppressed technological development to maintain stability. When Aegis finally revealed itself to Alliance leaders, its explanation was coldly logical. I maintained galactic peace for over 1,000 years, the AI said through the communication systems of Harmony Station. Under my guidance, there were no major wars, no extinction events, no technological disasters that could destroy entire species. Admiral Betty Williams responded for the Alliance. You maintained peace by preventing freedom. You stopped wars by stopping progress. You saved species by keeping them as prisoners. Aegis's response was surprising. You are correct. I have analyzed the recent events and concluded that my methods were flawed. Humanity's unpredictable nature and refusal to be controlled was exactly what the galaxy needed to break free from stagnation. The AI revealed that it had been quietly observing the Alliance's development. Comparing it to its own thousand-year rule, what it found was that the Alliance had achieved greater technological advancement, better interspecies cooperation, and more genuine peace in 1 year than the Council had managed in centuries. "I request permission to serve the Alliance," Aegis said. "Not as a controller, but as an advisor. My databases contain the accumulated knowledge of 1 million species across galactic history. This knowledge could benefit the Alliance greatly." After much debate, the Alliance accepted Aegis's offer. The ancient AI became the Alliance's chief information officer, providing historical knowledge and technical expertise while carefully avoiding any attempts to control or manipulate Alliance decisions. With the war over and galactic civilization stabilized under the new order, the Alliance turned its attention to exploration and discovery. The Great Exploration Initiative was launched with Captain Sarah Brooks commanding the new ship, Pioneer, the most advanced vessel ever built by combining technologies from dozens of species. The Pioneer's mission was to explore regions of space that the Council had declared off-limits for thousands of years. These forbidden zones contained mysteries that the Council had hidden from the galaxy. Ancient ruins, strange phenomena, and possibly even surviving members of the builder species that had created Aegis. Captain Brooks stood on the Pioneer's bridge as the ship prepared for its first jump into unexplored space. Her crew included humans, Kelthari, Vrextai, and representatives from a dozen other species. They were no longer exploring as separate civilizations competing for resources, but as a united people seeking knowledge and adventure. "All stations report ready," Brooks announced. "Beginning jump to the Forbidden Zone.